Welcome, everyone, to the Life of Giants. I am one of your hosts, Dino the Genetic Marvel, and with me over here is...
Kyle Petrila.
There we go. And he tried to take my shtick and burp, but the camera didn't start. So, haha, joke's on you.
I am okay with not having the burp, but yeah.
I mean, it just I like the idea that it sets the precedent, that people know there's going to be shenanigans. I feel like that's the key.
This is like a quasi-serious show.
Yes, but life isn't that serious. I think that is there is. Well, this is the interesting part is that when you go through stuff, you find that some stuff is meaningful and important, and then it's you have to learn to not sweat the small stuff either, which is, I know for myself, is one of those really difficult things, because a lot of the times, like, I know for myself, I have notoriously had problems where I'm like, I may be an asshole, but we all know that I'm right. And the people who are wrong get so angry and enraged, and I'm like, don't be wrong. Like, it's not my fault that you're wrong. You know you're wrong. You came to me with the wrong stuff. Why are you angry? That, like, what did you think was going to happen? And that's something that I'm trying to work on for myself, because I have to learn to go, okay, and just stop talking right there.
Keanu Reeves, right? He's like our modern Marcus. Like, it's just like, you know what? You gotta start arguing with people. 2 + 2 is 5. Good. Yes.
Sounds good.
I agree. Good. Let's go.
It's one of those things that is tricky, in that it goes against, like we were talking about this earlier, was like so many things that work go against
all logic and understanding.
I was going to say all that's good and holy, but yeah, logic and understanding, absolutely.
Logic and understanding is my holy, but yeah. And so in common sense, that's why the blasphemy is just a blue.
I see, and that's like one of those things where, like, I always was borderline arrogant when someone would say, "Oh, I'm an atheist," and I'm like, that's because you're unknowledgeable. Because thinking that you're the top of everything, like, and that's the thing, is to say, well, I don't believe in God per se. I'd be like, okay, that's that I can't say that that's not reasonable, because you say, well, I feel like there's a disconnect there, and I'm like, that's possible, because a lot of that has been lost in translation and time and corruption. Fair. But to say that we're the top, I'd be like, you're mental. I'm sorry, that's just crazy, right? So, like, and that's why when someone's like, nope, that's it, it doesn't exist, and you're going, and hilariously, so many people who are like, I'm atheist, also believe in aliens, which you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that disconnect.
What's the correlation to you? What do you mean? Why does?
So
because you think aliens are more absurd than God, or what?
No, I think there's a correlation between the idea of God, and then there's something else out there that's superior to us, right? So I believe that there is a God. In the Marvel universe, it's the one above all. Okay. It's the idea that there is some one or thing or whoever, he, she, whatever you want to call it, doesn't make a difference. But there's something at the top that manifested creation. Now, understanding that or having a conception of that is a complex thing in and of itself. But the idea that there aren't, like, thinking that it's only us in the universe, I'm like, that's very possible that we're the only planet with quote unquote civilization, whatever you want to call that. But thinking that there isn't other life, because life takes many forms, right? Like, even for our planet, humans are brand spanking new on the grand scheme of things, right? Hilariously, sharks are older than trees. You're like, and sharks don't pay taxes. Hey, that's kind of weird, right? Like, it's one of those things where you're going, see, there's
pay enough, but yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where you're going like, there's a lot more to the universe than I believe we're capable to understand, let alone not even being able to grasp the concept, right? So, and remember, like there, like it's certain things like we have the idea of gravity. Okay, mankind has not been able to reproduce gravity. So, like scientists' experiments can't produce gravity, and you're like, so how does and the hilarious
Oh
part
wait,
is
don't we have artificial gravity on like a space station or no? Like, is that all fake?
it's all fake,
You
and
mean
that's why
Star Trek is not real?
I know, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that. So, right,
I
and
thought
that's the thing.
I have the inside track, or do no. Said too much. Move on.
So, but that's the idea was that like because there are in science fiction stuff, they will be like, okay, so it's a space station that rotates, and because of its mass and the rotation, it causes artificial gravity. And you're like, that's a great idea in theory. However, has not been able to be manifested. You're going, so like the idea, and people and a lot of people are like, well, gravity's not real. And you're like, gravity is real, but I don't think we have the ability to understand what it is, right? So we've qualified it or categorized it in one way when the fact is that like physics hasn't figured it out,
No,
right?
but like with gravity, if gravity had a 1% more pull or a 1% less,
Yep.
life would cease to exist. So it is perfect, and maybe the only
We,
perfect thing.
but that is perplexing, right? Because
Okay.
right, so it's the idea of perfection is an anomaly in and of itself, right?
Well, yeah, because perfect doesn't exist really. Well, outside this, but
You're absolutely right, Kyle. That's exactly what I was thinking, and that's it. You know,
you're like
okay.
perfect doesn't exist. You're staring right at it. We should probably get to the passage.
Absolutely, I think it's relevant for today. So, okay,
No,
so
it
what
is.
we're
It's we, there's a whatever.
there's more to this conversation for sure. So today we are trying to handle a little bit more than we have in the last couple episodes. So we're going to try and do a little bit extra. So we're in book 1 and we're doing verses 8 to 11. So here is the first part. So from Apollonius, I learned freedom of will and undeviating steadiness of purpose, and to look to nothing else, not even for a moment, except to reason, and to be always the same in sharp pains on the occasion of the loss of a child and in long illness, and to see clearly in the living example, and that the same man can be both most resolute and yielding, and not peevish in giving his instruction, and to have had before my eyes a man who clearly considered his experience and his skill in expounding philosophical principles as the smallest of his merits. And from him I learned how to receive from friends what are esteemed favors without being either humbled by them or letting them pass unnoticed. What I was thinking was we should stop at each verse to discuss that thing, just because it's a lot that we're going through, right? You okay?
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
I was 100% paying attention.
So the first one, I think one of the key components was that this was a guy who had Apollonius, who helped educate him. Him being Marcus Aurelius, was had a massive amount of experience and applied that to philosophy, and even with that, the application of all of his wealth of experience, applying it to philosophy, he viewed as like the smallest of merits for what he was doing. And I feel like that's something where it's like we have a hard time perceiving the value we bring to certain situations, right? Certain environments, certain things. And I think that is one of those things where it's hard to see what you're like. It's the idea of the cobbler's children run around barefoot, right? Like we can't internalize to see as an outside viewer of what our strengths are, and that's complex. But also at the end, where he talks about the idea of learning to receive these grand favors and grand gestures, which, listen, the idea of friendship in and of itself and someone being willing to talk to you and thing, I think is a huge benefit or gift that we give each other on the regular, right? But like that too, we have to recognize is a value that's a two-way street. It's not individualized, right?
Well, yeah, definitely. And so a lot of people are one-way streets in those factors, both ways, really.
Yeah.
There's the ones that just suck the life out of you, and then the ones that like are the other end of it.
No, I absolutely agree.
I like to think that I am definitely both at different times.
I don't think I think a lot of the times it's kind of like Hamilton. Like there are a lot of one-way streets, but people still go both ways. You know what I mean? Like there'll be times when I have to rely on you. There are times when you have to rely on me. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm still waiting for the day that people aren't relying on me. I mean, I'm not relying on people. No. But
so no, just an FYI, I'm slowly progressively moving my stuff into the other room that I'm renovating to try and make like a little office thing. And this desk is quite cumbersome and I can't move it myself. Guess who I'm calling? It's gonna be
Victoria. Isn't it? Oh, whatever. A fucking desk. That's nothing, dude.
It's not. You know what? It's not even that heavy a desk. It's just big enough where I'm like, I could probably pull it off, but I'm like, there's a better chance of me not breaking something if I have help. So
I only want to do it if the pathway is strewn with shit and doorways that it doesn't fit through. Because
even better, there are shoes all the way up the side of the stairs. So it's gonna be no, they're mine.
You know why? Because the closet is filled with Victoria's shoes.
Also factual. That is also factual. Yeah.
I have never been in your house, so this will be interesting.
It's okay. You'll see it, and you'll be like, "Oh, there you go." Yeah, and I'm like, "That's the small pile." There's still lots more shoes. So it's
we can do it Thursday late at night, or Tuesday late at night after we've both done 2 shows.
That's that. Hey, Angie, how are you? Welcome. Did you get a haircut? Is that why you have a new profile picture? It looks very nice. It's very purple, but it also fits your face quite nicely. So, all right. So, I think that was one of the things that I really liked about that verse was just the idea that it's like, hey, you don't have like, because I know I have felt this before in the long term was that where I didn't feel, yes, it's a pixie cut. Welcome to witchcraft. That's fine. That's no. But the idea is that like I've felt at times where I wasn't deserving of the friendship people gave me. And that was a hard thing to understand. And the one person that I actually said, I asked them and I'm like, am I a good friend? And they're like, you're a great friend. And I'm like, I don't feel that I'm a good friend to you. And they were like, and they started listing stuff and I'm like, I do that for everybody. And they're like, it's great. And I was like, oh, okay. And it kind of put myself at ease, but it was like being able to have that conversation was brutal. Like I had built it up so much more in my mind that I'm like, I'm ending this friendship and I'm going to point out why they shouldn't stop being friends with me because I'm like, listen, apparently I'm a piece of shit. And you didn't know this.
Not you, it's me, but friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were like, no, you've been great. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Is there anything I could do better? And they were just like, no, you've been great. And I was kind of like, huh, all right. It struck me as odd, but at the same time, like the hardest part is being able to see yourself accurately, right? Like that's
Well, yeah, I have struggles with that.
Well, and also
Being
too,
the
like,
big black beautiful woman I am.
well, that's, I mean, you're a
um,
queen, sir. You're a queen. No, yas, queen. That's that's the word. But that, like, especially like realistically, we do comedy. We do self-deprecating jokes regularly, and they get well, but that's the thing is, like, people laugh, and then you're like, ah, I'm right, right? Like, so it reinforces the negative perception, and you're just like, ah, damn it, right? And you kind of one of those,
yeah, that's some
something worth contemplating,
Masamoto shit or Sun Tzu shit that you had.
right?
Mastering yourself is or the samurai code, right?
Yeah,
Don't speak ill even of yourself as you
yeah.
are. Yeah.
That was oh, Miyamoto Musashi.
Yeah, that's who I was.
Yeah.
I said Marimoto. I'm pretty sure that's the chef.
No, no.
Yeah, there's a
The
Marimoto.
great story. It's the greatest samurai duelist ever. That's okay. Hold on.
No,
Great.
but
We should get.
the name I said, I think it's the Iron Chef guy.
Yeah, Musashi Miyamoto. That's
Yeah.
it. Is the majority of Japanese people know Musashi Miyamoto as Japan's most famous and most skilled swordsman. His status among the Japanese has reached mythic proportions in the same measure that Westerners would give to Muhammad Ali or Michael Jordan. The life of Musashi is the gold standard of samurai in Japan. He was the one who did wild stuff, and then he went on later on in life to because he won 60 duels, I believe it was, and then which was like heinous, and then proceeded to also write some philosophy stuff, which was to be kind to yourself in words, not even as a joke, because you're like your brain doesn't perceive that.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because there's a point in Ted Lasso, the show that you refuse to watch.
I just don't have Apple TV. Why do you have to be like that?
No, fuck. If you could. Anyways, don't give me that shit. Anyways, no, they were talking. So a model was like panda or lion because she was going to be a female version of one, and then they said panda. Well, the other one said lion, but then they asked the star of the star of the team, and they're like panda or lion, and he said, I'm Jamie Tart. Why would I want to be anybody else? And then Ted Lasso is like,
I haven't seen that.
That is
super healthy.
It's amazingly healthy of you.
Yeah, and you're just like, and you're going, that's a good point. Yeah. You're like, you're like, I'm me. Who else would I want to be? And you're kind of going, oh, how dare you have such mental health, you son of a bitch! Like,
how dare you not see unto others and be jealous and whatnot.
Yeah, and you're like, I saw that clip and I was like, fucker, like, because you're like, you see it and you're going, shit. And even like Ted Lasso has some great bangers like that, just where he's like at one point the lady owner is like, I've been like kicking the stool out from under you constantly, and I'm sorry. He's like, I forgive you and thank you for your friendship. And she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, life is hard. People make mistakes. Like, and you're just kind of going, that's such a great perspective on things that you're just like, I wish I wasn't so damn petty.
But you've done, like, I try to bring that approach to things, but like, I don't know, I'm starting to think that maybe it's healthier just to hate the people. But it's just like, I don't, like apologies, it's like, change behavior, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I've been hurt by people, and I don't think they were like that wasn't their goal. So like malicious intent, and then it's just like, but it's just like also fuck you a little, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, and and then I guess if with the hate, it's better than hurt, and then it also you like you're, uh, it's just like I guess hurt still allows like you to want them back, whereas more of like if I hated you, it's just like fuck off, like.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a progress there, but like, yeah, I don't, and a lot of, and all these people, a thing with society I've learned, and I just view as bullshit. It's just like, whose fault is this? It's like, who the fuck cares? Let's solve the problem. The problem is rarely who's solved. If it's something that's like very repeatable and we gotta stop that, then it matters. But otherwise, it's just like, who fault?
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter. The problem it isn't the problem's the problem, not who created the problem. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the only point of whose fault is purpose of not repeating. But like so many things that we're just like trying to assign fault to is not a repeatable offense. And it's just a waste of fucking time. And it's witch hunting. And it doesn't solve the fucking problem. All it does is try to take down one person for what was probably just a mistake or probably just fucking happenstance. Like it's all so like why am I gonna witch hunt? Whose fault is it? Who the fuck cares? It's just like in a relationship, all right? Me and my woman, and it's like so, there's a problem. And like you can sit there and blame each other all the fuck you want, or you could just solve the problem and move on with your goddamn lives. Like I don't want a relationship. All these relationships, especially brought on by TV and all this shit, it's like man versus woman, man versus woman. It's just like no, it's man and woman versus the problem, versus the world, versus fucking because you are a team. That's the point.
100%. And that's actually something that Victoria and I have discussed where I'm like, listen, if there's a problem and you come to me, you're now the problem. But if you come to me with a solution to a problem, then you and I can attack the problem. And that's a communication thing where I'm like, and it's hard because I'm like, we all have a hard time committing to change, even though we know it's necessary for our growth, it's necessary for life, it's necessary for our betterment. But even still, we don't want to make those mistakes. But the fact is, you have to make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you're not going to find it the right way, right?
Sometimes I wish I could commit to not change, but I'm like so change.
I don't. Well, that's the thing is like when you're happy with yourself, you still need to change. And sometimes those changes, like the change you have to go through may be shittier, but you'll end in a better place where you're like, so I'm good. I have to become shitty and then become better. And you're like, that sounds horrible. Right.
Yeah. I'm like going through like you've seen my life. It goes through many shitty spells. And it's usually like, but it's usually a transition to a greater place. But it's like, it's like ongoing devastation trauma. Like it's insane. Like, like it's just like what I go through. Like in 1 week is just like more than most people would handle in a fucking years or a lifetime even. Like it's just the amount of loss I've had in like a week and a half is just like ridiculous.
And that's and at some point like you can get that vibe where you're like, wait, am I one step forward, three steps back? Or am I like, because let's be honest, is that idea of if you have to backtrack, that isn't the wrong way necessarily. Right? Like that's the thing is that is still progress because you're still like, you're like, oh, this was the wrong direction. I need to back up and go a different direction. You're like, as much as it hurts, you're like,
I don't even think of it as backup. I feel like that's a poor analogy. No, sorry, but it seems
no.
but it's like more of a like a right turn and a left turn. Like it's just like you're not moving backwards as much as you're just like reestablishing course. Like you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like I Yeah, because you're always moving forward, right? Like, I guess there is,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
time one way, buddy.
well, that's the thing is, I always find that like those times when I'm stonewalled, like it's kind of like I've turned down a dead end, and I'm like, I need to back out of this,
No, but
right?
like
Like
you
that's
are,
the way I perceive it.
yeah, no, but you are right. And who am I to say that your perception is wrong? But like,
No,
because
I'm not.
everybody's perception is different. I was just like,
Yeah, yeah,
that just didn't compute in my head. But yeah, you do go back. Like look at my shit. Like it's so funny. Like, oh, what month are we in? Okay, like yeah, like 2 months ago, pretty much to the date. Yeah, the 15th.
yeah,
Like I was super like I had flying high, job
yeah,
great, money coming, all this stuff. Now 2 months later, and I feel like I'm below stage one again. Like that's how
yeah,
like you see it like, but it's kind of insane because it's hard to even admit, but there are times like if you look at the course of my career, there well, I do end up at like level one again quite
yeah,
often. Kind of the the devil that is the trade. Like
yeah,
there are much better words. I don't have them in my head right now, but like
yeah,
it's the independent contractor's life, right? So
yeah,
um so I do often once a job's done, I'm out. I need to look for a job. So you're back at stage one, but if you kind of pay attention at the time, like I have I have been getting greater and
yeah,
greater things. Like, and some of them I still perceive as like, yeah, the one I did a year ago was a greater than this previous. However, I do love them both differently, and they were both great stepping stones. And to say that one was greater than another is really only the monetary value that brought to it, and
yeah,
like other people's perception versus like uh, uh, a principle and really
yeah,
highly regarded stand-in or background, which like special skilled position. Sorry,
yeah,
because people are going to get confused if they don't really know. So, but then I go back to like I get the large money thumbs and then the small sums, but some of them are very just like I'm like, what if like the big job is like great, that's the big job, but then I go to the little job, but I meet all the same people, and
yeah,
then like who knows what impact that has to the bigger jobs because I don't know the impact, but they could be, and I don't know what butterfly swings its wings, right? Like it's just like
yeah,
so it's interesting when people won't take some of the small jobs, and like I get that too, and there's a point where I will want to get away from that, but it's because like focusing on the bigger, it feels weird to take like steps back, but we don't know what a step back is all the time. Like we
yeah,
just don't. Like we don't have the ability to perceive that. There is a philosophical term. I forget because fuck, philosophy class was 20 years ago.
that's fair.
So there was and it's kind of like I don't know. No, maybe that's not the one. But even if all of our actions are predetermined, the fact that we don't know them and it and and we will change throughout, like we still that doesn't mean that it's not worth going through.
Correct.
Like it still happened. Like it's still our even if every decision because we don't think it, but like if you think about like all the knowledge would you go back and change anything in your life if you had new knowledge? Maybe. But would you go back and change anything without new knowledge? I guarantee 100% no,
Yeah,
because we all made that decision once already. So without new knowledge, you would do the exact same fucking thing. There's no way.
yeah,
Right?
because it's the idea that I know where I am right now because of those decisions.
Yeah, it was the
So
best decision for you at that point. And even if it wasn't, you I'm just gonna assume that we're always making the right decision. And then which is funny because we're just like I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a terrible idea. You should do that. But it's like the right decision
yeah,
towards fucking hilarious. Like things will
yeah,
happen. So you gotta always, and it's just like the theory of like isn't everybody out there just, although I have worked with people, like trying, just essentially doing the best they can with what they got at any given time.
Well, I've never heard anyone saying I'm trying to make the worst possible decisions on a daily basis, right?
No, but you've seen it happen. But like,
yes, but they
don't think it. Yeah.
They don't think it. They're not saying I want to make bad decisions for myself today, right? They could say, "Hey, I want to go on a bender for 3 days," and I'm like, "Hey, somebody wants to let off steam. That's not a bad decision." Now, some people go too far, myself included, but that's
people don't end after 3 days.
Also true, right? Like, so, like, there's a rationale where no one actively tries to make their worst decisions for themselves, right? Like let's be honest, like there's a lot of people who make decisions and you're like, what were you thinking? And they're like, I thought I was making the right decision. You're like, that in and of itself is adequate response, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, they thought they were making the right decision. They know now that they're not. And like, that's the same idea with regards to like whose fault is this?
Yeah.
Who cares? Fix it, then deal with it later.
Yeah, move on. And then the only reason, but even the deal with it later, there's nothing to deal with if it was like a unique happenstance, right? Like,
for sure.
To like a repeatable offense. So did you read all of them, or do we need
to read? That's the first one. We still have a bunch to go. So yeah, you want me to read the next one?
Sure, why not? Fuck.
All right. So
and then we'll just talk about the same thing the entire time. But
I mean, it's gonna get thicker. Let's be honest. So number 9. So from Sextus, a benevolent disposition, and the example of a family governed in a fatherly manner, and the idea of living conformably to nature and gravity without affection, and to look carefully after the interests of friends, and to tolerate ignorant persons and those who form opinions without consideration. He had the power of readily accommodating himself to all, so that intercourse with him was more agreeable than any flattery. And at the same time, he was most highly venerated by those who associated with him. And he had the faculty both of discovering and ordering, in an intelligent and methodical way, the principles necessary for life. And he never showed anger or any other passion, but was entirely free from passion and also most affectionate. And he would express approbation without noisy display, and he possessed much knowledge without ostentation. I love the shit out of that verse, and I'll tell you why. It's the idea, let me take this down. It's the idea that you can have your emotions and not be emotional. You can be passionate and not be viewed as someone overly like a passionate person. And I'm like, that resonates with me, because I'm like, I'm doing my best to learn how to master my emotions. And I'll tell you right now, is for me, the biggest thing is that like I'll be watching a movie and I'll start to cry. And I'm like, I get overwhelmed with emotions. And then I'm like, I'm watching something like, and like, let's be honest, like I'll be watching The 13th Warrior. It's one of my go-tos for a little bit of comfort. Okay. The 13th Warrior, there's a poem about kind of the end of life. And they say it in the beginning, and then it's said again at the end. And it's a really, really wonderful poem. And it's about destiny and your ancestors and like kind of your last hurrah. And I'm like, bro, it tugs at my heart. That, and also if anyone watches Avatar, Trees from the Vine, that poem by Uncle Iroh, like I will, that ruins me every time, because you know that he was singing it for his son, right? Because like it's a whole thing where he lost his son and it killed him. And you're going like, it was a guy who was that's so in the in the cartoon. You haven't seen Avatar, right?
No.
No.
And I would not hold on to that expectation of that happening.
Well, that's your loss, sir.
I have seen the Shyamalan movie. It was fantastic.
I hate you so much sometimes. You're such a bastard. So there you go. Overexposure. There you go.
The sun's sunning right now. It's not even like it's like down. I don't know.
It's 7:30 and it's still bright as hell outside. I don't know. That's okay.
Just like, it's even behind the cloud. Like, I don't know. Why am I? I'm just like, it's really affecting my camera.
Yeah, no, it happens. But that's the idea, was that this guy, so Uncle Iroh, was viewed as the Dragon of the West because he was super powerful and like he was a general and like it was just, and everyone was fucking terrified of him. And when he lost his son, he just had no reason to go on. So like he didn't do anything to himself, but like he was no longer a combatant because it's like I don't see the point in fighting, right? And then he gained that back, and you're like, he's a fucking badass. But you're like, that's an emotional journey, and you're like, that's the thing is, he would come into these situations like he's by far one of the best characters in the whole story because he's an old man who's had massive victories, suffered massive loss, and he always has a kind word. He always is like, sit down, have some tea, take a load off. You deserve a rest. And you're like, and the one guy was like, I just tried to pick your pockets. He's like, yeah, but you couldn't. So let's just chill out. Maybe we'll have a conversation. And you're saying, going, listen, that idea, and especially for someone like yourself and myself, whereas like, if someone's like, I'm going to kill you, you're like, you have no chance. I will rip you apart piece by piece because I'm a giant, right? But you could stand there going, hey, but you know what? Why don't we sit down and talk about it? And you're going like, in the grand scheme of things, if we go back 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years, there's no conversation. And that being willing to have the conversation, despite my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, like if somebody's like, give me your wallet, I'd be like, no, what's the matter? Maybe we could talk. Like, that's going to enrage them. But I'm like, bro, you can't, there's nothing you can do to me that is going to harm me because I'll break every bone in your body. That's the advantage of being me. But at the same time, you're going like, that makes me a better person, that I'm willing to go, I'm not going to hold your evil against you. If anything, I'm going to show you kindness because that's what you need. And that's my kindness makes me better, you know?
Yeah. See, like this statement is like, yeah, it's like the epitome of, I assume, what both of us really want out of Stoicism. But it's like, it's also at the same time the antithesis of me.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I'm so like, and something I hate about society in a sense too, because like, I want everything done with passion. In a sense, like I'm very passionate, but like that's, and it's something that I have lost, have regained. And also with my career, also the ability to emote was lost for a long time.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of hair trigger, but also as my career, it needs to be.
Yeah, that's fair.
But not all the time. So I have a little different hill to climb with that, where I have to be able to
yeah.
But it is the job, right? Like I'm like, I got to be able to emote emotions I'm not feeling, and not emote when I shan't. And yeah, so it's like 100% emotional control, which is hilarious because it's like I often get careers and things I'm bad at, and that one's right up there, right the fuck up there.
But that's but okay, but that's the thing is, I like, let's be honest, the more you try and control something, the more it falls out of your hands, right? Like that's
yeah.
Right. So like the idea of having those emotions on tap is not necessarily being able to control them, but master them. in that, like, I know that there's a time and place, and I can hold the dam for those specific times, which I'm like, that's really the mastery of it. But you never have control, right? Because
well, yeah, no, you don't. Well, because you're gonna feel them, but the control comes in the whether you display or not, I guess. But it's still like, or how much.
You've seen my face,
when, right? Like,
well, you've seen my face when people say stupid shit, and I just go,
yeah,
I was like, what? Right? Like, it's not.
My face doesn't have a filter for that shit.
No, and that's one thing that I know Victoria is really good at, is just having like a no expression on her face, and she just looks at you, and you're just like, I need a response, and she's like, I'm thinking, and I'm like, I'm getting nothing here. What the hell, right? Like, it's a hard thing to master, because I would think that some, like, I know for myself, I believe for yourself, that we are extremely passionate people.
Well, you are Greek, my friend.
I am very Greek. I am the Greekest of the Greek. But that's the idea. Like, I know for myself, the big thing was, like, my parents were like, don't touch anyone growing up. And I ended up getting bullied. And my parents were like, why didn't you fight back? And I'm like, because you told me not to. And they're like, yeah, you're supposed to if someone hits you. I'm like, I could have used that information in advance. Thank you very much. Right? So it's that idea where you're like, it's ingrained into you. Well, no, don't be angry. You're like, I have every right to be angry with a situation, but acting out of anger is not my right.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, I think that, like, that it's that idea where I'm like, no, I'm angry about a situation. I have every right to be angry. But that doesn't mean that I have the right to break stuff and do this and do that. And also, I've never understood the logic of breaking my own shit when I'm angry. That's ridiculous. I don't want to. Why would I break my stuff? I'm going to break your stuff. That's.
Well, yeah, like, yeah, I don't remember really breaking my stuff, but unless you say that door was my stuff.
My mind definitely went to the door, and I was like, I mean, is that your stuff? I don't think
I did make a barn door once.
Yeah.
Well, not barn. What is that? What the half and half? Partition door? I don't know.
I forget what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, it probably has a name. Write in the comments if Angie's still watching, because there's nobody else.
That's not true. We have a few people.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good then. This is not all for naught. What were we talking about? Yeah. So I think it's funny because part of my charm is my crazy, passionate outlandishness, but then it also gets me in trouble at the same time, which is the time where I should restrain. But it's more of the fact that people just don't understand it, and they take it as a, like, I'll have like crazy outbursts, but it's really just like, it's like the whistle on a train releasing steam. Like, I'm just like, ah, and then I go on with life. But if I keep that in, then that goes towards somebody. So, but then people think that I'm like angry. I'm like, no, I'm just a psychopath like 90% of the time. Anyway, this is just fun psycho, whereas like if you make me repress it, or like I have to deal with stupidity over and over and over again, it gets more directional. And that's what we're trying to avoid, I guess.
So, and that's okay for before I forget, it's referred to as a Dutch door, is the one that splits in the middle. That is what it's called. But I think that's the whole thing, is that like yourself, yeah, if I am forced to suffer dealing with absolute stupidity, then in turn, eventually I just start responding directly to the stupidity in more heinous and heinous responses, because I'm just like, hey, why don't you learn how to fly? That's reasonable, isn't it? No? What are you talking about, you nutbat? Like, I get belligerent and stuff like that, because I feel like there's times when you put up with someone's stupidity, they feel that that's some sort of acceptance of the stupidity, and you're like, no, that's not. You're stupid. It's not. Why would I accept your stupidity? Stupid. Like it's very, and that's a hard thing to do. Where, and that's the idea of like saying, talking badly about that person and stuff like that. Where you're just like you're dumb as shit, and you're like that's not healthy for me, let alone people's perception of me, right?
Yeah, like I would prefer, like no, I 100% get that and concur, and also guilty. I want to get to the day where I am progressive enough that I can take the person aside and just be like, that's unacceptable. And it's really like, I'm like, if you want to continue, that's fine, but you're going to continue without me, and you can go on with life type thing. But like, it's funny because I'm as far like where we grew up and to now, it's like it's not like we were highly trained in like we should have the difficult conversations, but now people downright fucking hide from them, and it's just like that's not healthy, and society's getting fucked up because of it, because nobody's having the hard conversation. That's why divorce rates are high. That's why and it's just miscommunications, and then
definitely.
And even I saw a TikTok today, and it was a woman saying how she's like, if a woman's single, it's because she got into a place where she was okay with being single, and if you don't bring peace, then we just would rather stay single. But I'm like, okay, that's delightfully gendered for you, but at the same time, you think that's not the exact same for men? Yeah, it is, because there's a lot of men out there that are just sick of your shit, and it's not like the returns are not worth the squeeze. Sorry, I have like at night, I get like all these mosquitoes on my window, which is fine, but for some reason they fucking breached, and I've already killed 2, and I don't want to sleep in the room with the mosquitoes.
100% factual.
So yeah, so little interlude of death in this one. But yeah, like I'm just like, why? But that's the thing. You could have said that statement, and it was fantastic, and everybody could agree. But no, you chose to be like, I am woman and men have wronged me. Therefore, now 50% of people think you're a fucking asshole. Like, this is where things could have been changed. Because the fact is, I even say this when I'm complaining about women, because I'm not complaining about the gender as a whole, just like my encounters recently with specific ones. And like, I'm sure there's a bunch of shit men out there, but like, I'm not trying to like date them. So, so those experiences, if I was talking to a woman that was complaining about specific men and shit, and like even throws in a general comment once in a while, it's like, as long as you're not talking, like, it's not all men. Like, you've had good ones in the past, and you fucked that up too. Like, it's just like, it's so it like, how about we keep some of that shit out of it? Like, it's just like, you're dealing with those people, I'm dealing with you, and it's just like, and I'm sure there's both sides, and then the people that actually want things have to. I just feel like I'm drawn into like, you must play games, and now I don't want to play the games. I don't want the people to play the games. You're either here or you're not. It's kind of like that. Like, I want to find that chick, except she's messed up. But like, everybody's seen that one video. She's like, yeah, I had a high value man, and I lost him because I was a fucking brat, and he could have given me everything and all that stuff, but I made him problems, and so he dumped her ass and just found a new one. And it's just like, okay, you can't just bring problems into people's life and fucking make demands and shit without giving anything back too. Like, a lot of people are like it's always like, oh, I don't want to do without a ring, I'm not doing wifely duties. And then they get married and they're like, I didn't do that before we were married. Why would you expect me to do it? Well, then fucking just say I'm not doing it at all, and then move on, because the guy, like, you can't sell something, but she's apparently married now, so whatever.
Well, that's the real thing, is that it's understanding, like you saying, well, I'm not doing that until for this, and you're like, so you're just haggling on price.
Yes.
Because the fact is that like, oh, but you would do those things for a higher value or a higher
mate, more money or some shit, and it's just
right. Like, and you're going, that's not how that works. No. You're like, you can't use that as because it's a crutch, is saying, well, I wouldn't do that unless I'm married. You're like, that's like, I would ask that of you because it betters our environment and our relationship. I'm not asking it of you because you're my woman and you should do that. That's insane. Right?
And
Now, it may come across that way, but that's the tricky part.
But it's like, that even being said, it's like the worst fucking thing. Because the last thing I don't want to marry you so that you'll change.
Yeah,
I want you to be the person you want, be the person that we are together. And then when there's a fucking ring, it shouldn't change a whole lot in the interday person to person thing. Just more of the commitment. I'm good. We're in it now.
Well, that's the one.
The show over.
Well, that was one of the things, was that you should be looking for someone whose principles align with yours.
Yeah.
Because your principles should never change.
No, but everybody will change.
People change.
Yeah.
But principles don't.
No.
Right? And that's where you're going, like, hey, listen, like, look, realistically, I got fatter and now I'm thinner. Nobody gambled on that one, I'll tell you, let alone me. I did not. Okay. I just assumed I'd be gone. I would get fatter and then disappear like magic. But right.
I would appear as much as I ever had before I was gone.
Ta-da! So, but that's the idea, is that whereas your principles and your guidelines for your existence, those don't, hey, Gabe thinner, relax. Well, I used to be 500 and now I'm only 250. Like, I'm getting ready for sundress season, sir. But that's the idea, right? Like, is that listen, Kyle's long legs, Kyle will be perfect for a sundress. So that's
no, I was just excited to experience sundress swim season.
I mean, why not?
Although I do want a kilt, and now it's a tax return.
I have my own tartan. We could definitely make that happen. I will get my own.
I want like an official, but like I those are spendy, so I need to. I'm okay with the fake one.
It's very cool. Have you ever seen the guy who actually wraps himself and it's like there's a whole thing, because you're like, the way you wrap it, like you roll into it, and then afterward you're like, there's one part that you can flip over your head, and then like it's all this, like it's like 7 different outfits in one. It's very awesome. Anyways.
But I am Scottish, so I feel like before I was just drawn to it, and now I have rights to it. So, well,
technically I'm a Scottish lord, so ta-da, it works. It's fine.
You just had $100 once.
Wasn't even mine, baby. Booyah! Yeah. My wife loves me. But
I don't know how that feels.
God damn it. All right. Let's go on to the last two.
Oh, we're gonna do them. All right.
Yeah, why not? They're very applicable to the conversation we're having. Okay, because so number 10.
Go on.
Let me pull it up here. Is number 10, which is from Alexander the Grammarian, to refrain from fault finding and not in a reproachful way to chide those who uttered any barbarous or solcistic or strange sounding expression, but dexterously to introduce the very expression which ought to have been used, and in a way of answer or giving confirmation or joining in an inquiry about the thing itself, not about the word or by some other suggestion. So similarly,
what I talked about for like
that is exactly what you were talking about, which perfect segue was the idea of it's handle the problem, not the nitpicking of, well, that's not the right word, that whose fault is it? And that's the thing, is you're like, being able to focus where focus is needed is the paramount purpose or the principle that we should be following, because you're like, listen, the idea is if we stay focused on progress, then those nitpicking and whose fault and why and all that disappears, and you're like, let's fix it, because now everyone involved, it doesn't matter who screwed up, but everyone involved can see the solution and be part of the solution
Yeah.
because we can fix it, as opposed to let's sit here and humdrum. And I think we were talking about that, the idea where like they've gone on to explain how it's like the importance of therapy is being able to figure out or be guided to understand the situation. It is not meant to rehash and rehash and rehash and rehash, because what that does is you're layering and or solidifying that traumatic experience instead of I've figured it out, now next step. It's about progress as opposed to hammering something to the point where you're like, the more you talk about something, the more it gets ingrained in your mind. So if you keep on reliving that trauma or problem over and over and over and over and over, all you think about is that problem, and that's an issue.
Yeah, I really hate people that do that. Oh, see, they got in your window too.
It's I have a story about that, but
oh, you sure they didn't, like, they got in mine and they flew through? And...
Well, they were like, let's be on camera in 2 places. Totally reasonable. All right, let's go for the last one just before we're done here. So number 11 is from Fronto. Great name. I learned to observe what envy and duplicity and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, and that generally those among us who are called patricians are rather deficient in paternal affection. Mind blown. Kyle with the hot takes. You guys aren't American. We are not American, sir. We are Canadian. Well, I'm Greek. He's Lithuanian. And we live in Canada. So
I'm Lithuanian, and Scottish is like my other, like I'm like 40-something% Lithuanian, and then the like 25-ish is Scottish, and then my mutt kicks in, right? But you're like what, full Greek? Or like,
yeah, I would be. I like that. Ew. Thank you for that, Gabe. Really appreciate that. You
know he was talking about the Greek, right?
That's only because he hasn't tried it. But that's so for me. Well, my mom is from what would have been termed like Macedonia, where Alexander the Great's from. And then my father was from what is this even about? We're talking about the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, sir. That's what we're doing. And if you were here earlier, you would have known. Come on, Gabe, get with the game. Don't be ridiculous. Yeah.
I was like Macedonia, where Alexander the Great's from. And it's not like Macedonia, where Cliff, that asshole's from. But I'm like, it seems like you really nitpick, or you like cherry picked that one.
Yeah, well, you know,
that's where the great guys come, not like 6 dudes that are like, you know, named Cliff or something.
Yeah. They're all Nick, and Zuds.
And Constantino.
Yeah, there you go. So what we're discussing, Gabe, is we're going through a few verses every week of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius in the idea of trying to discover, grow as people, and become better. Because let's be honest, we can't get any worse. That's basically what we're thinking. So
Marcus Aurelius was Emperor of Rome.
He was Caesar. He was Caesar of Rome. He was in charge. He was the guy in charge. And wildly, he went on to go and discuss these things and the contemplations of. So this was his personal diary. It was never meant to be released. And then it was discovered and it was made into a book. So it's the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And when you read through it, you kind of start to realize, like, we kind of go through the same questions, concerns, thoughts, feelings. And no, he's not the one that got stabbed a bunch. He was a different one. He was a better one. But he was
the one nobody wanted to stab.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing, is nobody wanted his job, because while he was in charge, there was famine, plague, war. Like, there was numerous horrible things. And he was the guy who actually started selling off like all the riches that were in Caesar's palace, and not Caesar's palace, but like the palace that held the emperor. So you're like, he could have been dressed in the finest of clothes, and he chose not to. He could have had the finest of beds. He chose to sleep on the floor. And you're like, little things like that, where you're going, like, it's a question of how to be better principled as a person, not only as a man, but even like this is a guy who had realistically at the time ultimate power. He could decide if you died or lived. He could decide to take everything a person had. And this goes through the contemplations of his life. And it's a very telling because a lot of the things that he discusses are the same type of things that we talk about on a daily basis. And that's why we're trying to have the conversation where I love this verse specifically where he's like, I learned to observe that envy, duplicity, and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, where you're going like, just don't lie. And I'm like, just take the shame of being wrong is one of those things. And you're like, and you know what? Like, have enough balls to hold yourself to your own standards. Those are like so hard, let's be honest. But like so important to our own personal growth, like holding, and that's the whole thing was later on we'll go through it, but there is a quote from Marcus Aurelius where he goes, be strict for yourself and be lenient on others. That's the real mastery of yourself, where you're like, I should be careful on what I do for myself, but I shouldn't be holding people to higher standards than I hold myself. That's ridiculous. That makes me a bad person, right? And then also too, he's like, people that among us who call ourselves patricians are rather deficient in paternal affection. You're like, Jesus, because earlier on he said it's like the idea of running a household as a fatherly way. And I bring the story where my brother was in a discussion with a bunch of gentlemen who are of high regard, and one guy turned to him and goes, he goes, George, I could be your father. And my brother's response, which was so fucking awesome, was, then why don't you treat me as a son? And you're like, God damn, because you're like, that's the thing, is chiding somebody that like, well, I could be your father. Okay, then treat me like your son. You should, like, remember, and like I love this saying, is that your father is the only man alive who wants you to be better and more successful than them.
Not mine.
That's different. You have a anyways. Can y'all believe Julius Caesar thought he was going to a toga party before he died? I mean, that was the times there, Gabe.
But yeah, like it's funny, like, yeah, I think you're going through war, famine, all the death, all this shit, and it's just like in plague. I'm like, you know who you want at the leader? You don't want a passionate leader that's worried that the world's gonna end. You want the statue, the stoicism, right? Like, that's the leader you want. You want the strong leader, and he doesn't boast about his shit because everybody's hurting. Everybody should be hurting at the same time. If society's hurting, the leaders should be hurting, but we don't live in that shit no more.
And that's the thing, is, so like I've read forward, and like the problem was I was having a hard time pushing through, and that's why like I was talking with Kyle, and we both like this. So it was the idea that if we held ourselves accountable by doing a little bit each week, then we could actually get through this a lot better and really have a good discussion. So the idea behind this was that like there's so much information here that it's worthwhile taking the time to go through. But we are here every or as many Mondays as we can, most Mondays, unless I, am a dick and I leave the country. Whatever.
Hey man, if I catch a gig, I'm gone too. Like I applied for something for Wednesday, and I already put Cole on notice. He's like, it is what it is, right?
Such is life. Right?
Paycheck still because Marcus didn't figure it all out.
The bastard. But that's the thing. So by all means, everyone, please feel free to like, share, subscribe. We try and have stuff on every day, so please hit mine, Dean the Genetic Marvel, or Kyle Petrilla. We both are trying to do shows and things. And if you're in the Toronto area, I am going to be performing at Multicultural Madness, which is going to be at SoCap on Friday. So Gabe says, I know Cole. Then you have suffered enough, sir. Welcome to somewhere that is kind and gentle. That's there you go.
Myself and Cole have a show that's every other Wednesday, but it is this Wednesday, called Sketched Out. We have a special guest, Ryan Beveridge, and we were going to look at the sketches of Ryan Beveridge and discuss them, which should be a lot of fun. I know him personally. And I will, okay. Oh, if you're in the Toronto area, we are both at, Comedy Lab tomorrow, filming.
Well, no, we're filming that. So I'm
that
doing.
Won't be released until after, is it?
It won't be released after, but we are doing like kind of a. It's called table service, and it's a bunch of comedians. So I'm cooking on Hammered and Cheese, and then I'm bringing that food to a comedy club, and we are going to dine and record it, edit it, and then release it a little later, as it will be hilarious,
funny at least. It's very
it's going to be dinner with a bunch of comedians and people that are mostly dead inside. So it should be entertaining.
It is a diverse group. And by time, and before that, from 7 to 9, I'm going to be at Bampod House in Toronto. It's actually insanely close to Comedy Lab. Like, I can park in the one spot and walk to both. And nice. So I'm going to be doing a poetry open mic there. Probably. I bailed last time, but I should make it this time, especially since I have extra motivation to just be in the area. And
makes sense.
Yeah. So if you want to hear some more of those depressing mic drop moments that I give to Dino, and he laughs inappropriately at my pain.
Wildly inappropriate.
Should just feel bad and be a bad friend. You guys weren't here for that part of the conversation. All right. But yeah, so I'll be at Bampod House and then Comedy Lab, which you guys can watch later. Also, if you're not here for the live Life of Giants, you can always watch the replay, which I think is available, immediately after or like the day after?
Immediately after, like within minutes. So check it out, everybody. But that has been this has been part 3 of Life of Giants, the study of Marcus Aurelius Meditations. And in the meantime, if you want us to talk about anything else, feel free to leave it in the comments. Have a wonderful evening.
Like, share, subscribe.